Hey, my name is Dustin Schau. I'm head of API client team at Postman. You probably heard of Postman, but if you haven't, we're like one of the world's most popular developer tools. Over 40 million people have used us, and so I get the luxury of leading that team.
Dustin,
Yeah,
we're glad you're
yeah, that's
here.
it.
To kick things off, how's your experience been today?
I was on a panel, so I feel like oftentimes when I go to conferences as like a panel or like a conference speaker, I also like to attend some of the talks before, just to get a vibe. So it was really cool. I saw a couple of live demos from David Kramer from Century. I think I caught the tail end of another one, and then I saw some WorkOS demos. So yeah,
Nice.
it's good. Vibes are good. I think the panel was fun. I hope it was well received. So yeah, it's been a great conference thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I had the privilege in maybe April, May to
Mhm.
see you talk about what you're doing with MCP,
Yeah.
demonstrate some of the capabilities that you have there. There was a moment where I realized Postman does a whole lot more than I thought.
Yeah.
Catch us up.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. It's like the best blessing, also curse of Postman, that users formed like a mental model of us as this simple API client 10 years ago. Because actually Postman recently celebrated its 11th birthday. So,
Wild. Congrats.
thank you. I've only been 2 years, so I take no credit. But I think that because that locked in place of Postman is just this REST client, replacement of curl. I think that users are not aware of the way that the product has evolved,
Yeah.
and so in particular, I think about the work the client team has done.
Mhm.
So we support 8 different protocols now. So you mentioned MCP as an example, but there's an AI request. So we have some of the hypey stuff. It's cool to be in the Bay Area and hear about MCP and AI, but the reality is that most of the world runs on HTTP, on gRPC, on GraphQL, right? So we support all those protocols as well, and I think we have really great experiences that
Yeah.
rival any dedicated tool. So if you use GraphQL, maybe you've used Graphical or
Yeah.
Apollo Studio, it's our stuff's just as good. So check it out. And then the same value prop of using Postman of send a request, see a response, get to that 200 okay, and then save to a collection, share it with your team. That works across any different protocol.
Interesting.
So and then we've kind of expanded into becoming multi-product.
Yeah.
So there's the core client, there's the API network, as you mentioned, the great tweet about the war chest of 100,000 APIs.
Yeah.
It's been cool to see customers Salesforce and Stripe and UPS building on Postman,
Yeah.
using the basically distribution of all those the world's devs building with APIs, they're always
Mhm.
using our product. And then we have some cool newer stuff like Flows, which is our composable workflow builder.
Oh, sick.
So it's really quite awesome. It's actually cool. I was talking to Garrett and uh, I think his name was Tobin.
Tobin, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and they're like, yeah, we use it all the time. We use flows, we use agent mode. I kind of cursor agent experience. I'm like, cool, thank you. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'd be interested to know, what are you experiencing as some of the challenges of, finding that early product market fit
Yeah,
in that kind of isolated dev tools
yeah,
space, which is kind of where my mind kind of latched on to,
yeah,
took a snapshot of that.
yeah,
Um, what are some of the challenges that you've been finding with, developing these tools and then taking them to market and trying to change that mindset
yeah.
around what y'all offer?
Well, to be a harsh critic of myself and our distribution, I still think most people don't know. So in some sense, the challenge is this discussion. The challenge is that I'm kind of on a quest to begin to change this perception,
Yeah.
of hey, we do so much more. The team's doing such awesome work. Use it, and for each of those new protocols, it's actually fascinating how the team kind of evolved them, because HTTP, it might seem like it's straightforward, but there's a lot of improvements we've made to that core protocol that's driving
Yeah.
the business. But then with every new protocol we've added, we use it kind of as an opportunity to experiment, learn more, and then think about lessons learned that can be applicable for all different protocols. So an example is that we I think did some pretty novel patterns of gRPC can be streaming, you can use WebSocket
Hmm.
and other streaming protocols, and we basically reuse those patterns so that we can build the next protocol that's streaming more quickly. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's just been fun. The main challenges, like I said, is I think a lot of product people think like build it and they will come.
Yeah.
The reality is not always true, you know? And so like, there were 4 guys from the API client team who went to React Conf recently. I don't know if you were there by chance,
Yeah.
but they were like, yeah, everyone thinks we're only a REST client, you know? And so like, in some sense, that's intentional. Like I'm trying to get people out there, like spread the good word,
Yeah.
you know, like be like, hey, like you should check out Postman again. Like we do a lot more stuff than you realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to kind of like break me out of that mindset, what are some things that are capable now that like are like exciting use cases that you've seen, like that kind of the bright spots, like people really taking advantage
Yeah.
of Postman?
So to be honest, I feel like most of them are actually still in HTTP,
Okay.
and then we're building on them for other protocols. So I think of like a 3-vector way of like user adoption. So there's like the main use case of like debugging, you know, and that use case is like really strong for us. Like we
Sure.
have a great GUI, like, you know, the goal of like someone trying to debug is like, I want to know how this API works. I want to make it better. I'm actively developing it, etc. Right. We've also recognized that like that's more collaborative than people realize. So it's not done with like one person, you know, it's like a backend developer, front end developer, sometimes PMs or QA or like other things. And so we try to like really nail that use case. But then, you know, there's like the next case. It's like once you have this API built, you know, like how do you validate it is high quality? You know, like, and we have a really great basically scripting environment. So you can write unit tests, integration tests inside the Postman product. Really underrated feature, you know, like,
Amazing.
and then when you just by active like doing that, the next time a person comes and like sends a request manually, it shows if the like tests are passing. But that's like,
Interesting.
you know, kind of useful. And then we have the like automation product, which is that by virtue of creating a collection, having a request, writing a script, you can then use that with like products like collection runner, um, our product that's called monitors, kind of like Pingdom or like better uptime or something.
Yeah.
You basically like on some cadence, basically run that API, or you can like use it in like a tool like GitHub Actions with our CLI to like ensure that you're not regressing your API and your API stays quality. So I feel like that whole space, users also don't know we do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And so what we're actually doing right now is, you know, I said that like, I don't think like always, like if you just build a great product, the users will come. I do think we have work to do in like the other protocols. So
Yeah.
the other protocols all support the scripting use case. They don't all
Mhm.
support the automation use case. So that's the problem that we're trying to tackle right now, actually.
Interesting. So if someone's kind of like MCP has been like, you know, all the rage
Yeah.
this year. What are some ways that people could experiment with MCP on your platform? Because there's a lot to learn, you know,
Yeah.
like just with any new technology, there's
Yes.
a lot of false starts, a lot of like, you know, dead libraries already.
Yeah.
Like, what are some ways that they could get started using the tools that you're providing?
Yeah. Great question. So we have a couple of different products or like product capabilities that can help a user who wants to build an MCP server. One, we have what's called the MCP server generator. I think I actually demoed it in April.
Yes, we have a
So
video for that.
yeah, that's been augmented. So originally that was only for APIs that were available like in the world, you know. So
Hmm.
you could create an MCP server from Stripe and Salesforce and whatever. But like if you think about probably users who are building an MCP server, they want to build it for their internal company. You know, like I work at enterprise and I want to build an MCP server or whatever, right? And so we've been augmenting our agent mode capability to where if you have a collection, you can say like, generate me an MCP server, and then it'll actually create one for you.
Oh,
And
cool.
then it integrates with our MCP client so
Hmm.
that you can basically create this server, you can like kick the tires a little bit, and then you can actually like debug and validate to see if it actually works.
Yeah.
So it's all in that like kind of like manual debug use case. Like that's our like bread and butter. We
Yeah.
have to like nail that. So also I would say like, you know, my CEO would get a little mad at me, but it's like, yeah, we're a platform, but like if you do build elsewhere, you know, if you have an MCP server and you just want to like test and debug it, perfectly fine. You know, like go build it with Node or Bun or whatever you want to do to like experiment and
Yeah.
explore. And then like once you have it either hosted or you're using like STDIO to like connect to it, you can use the Postman MCP request to like see if it actually works as you expect
Mhm.
in like a manual case.
Nice. One thing I wanted to ask is about MCP kind of like emerging best practices.
Yeah.
Like as people build these systems and you're kind of seeing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any patterns that kind of rise to the top as
Yeah.
positive?
Yes. I'll start. I mean, A couple. I would not say I have like tons of expertise because
Mhm.
also this is like a fairly new-ish space. You
Yeah.
know, like it's in the panel I was talking about how it's like when you leave the Bay Area for a bit, it's like super fascinating because like here it's like you hear MCP, it's like the only thing everyone talks about. MCP, MCP, MCP. And then you like leave for a little bit and you ask someone what's MCP and they're like, I have no clue what you're talking about. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but that said, I think, you know, in the Bay Area, we're on like the like early adopter bleeding edge cycle. I think a few patterns I've noticed. One, your MCP server is like only as good as your underlying APIs. So if your APIs are trash, so too will your MCP server. You know, and like
Cascades up.
exactly. So you know, like that was we were discussing the like DX versus like agent experience question. Like ultimately, DX will forever be important as far as I'm concerned, you
Mhm.
know, and like the like foundational element of like you must build good APIs that humans can reason about, and then also that like agents or like LLMs can understand is incredibly important. The other one I've noticed is I think a lot of teams they do a direct one-to-one mapping from like here's my literal every endpoint I have in our company, and then expose them all as one-to-one mappings to tools. That's actually a really bad way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen even like big companies I admire, like Notion, they did like a great like case study of like why they stopped doing that. And it might seem obvious in hindsight, but the goal is that if you orient your MCP server more around like use cases,
Mhm.
so not, you know, trying to think of an example. Uh, let's use like the like Postman product. You know, if you want to add a request to a collection, that's like 3 separate API calls. You
Yeah.
know, and so like if you only expose the one-to-one mapping of tools, that's not actually gonna help an AI. It's a pretty bad user experience, and it's also a pretty bad agent experience.
Yeah.
And so I think what we've learned and observed is like you really got to like actually understand the use cases that your users are going to want to do in the MCP server
Yep.
and keep that list small and then branch out. You know, so an MCP server with 100 tools is generally a bad MCP server. So also keep them smaller, keep them focused, etc.
How no technology seems to save us from having to understand the users.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. I've been thinking about that a lot too. It's like, I think probably there's a lot of like challenges or pain or turmoil on like, how do we become AI native? And like, we're way behind and we must like use AI. And it's like, adding AI to your product isn't like building a like really crappy chatbot. It's like deeply understanding the way that users use your product and then figuring out how some of the things that AI is good for, you know, like summarization or like kind of giving somewhat of an answer, like helping someone recover from
Mhm.
something. You know, it's like, what do your users struggle with and how could AI help reduce that struggle is like a way better framing. But funnily enough, that's the same framing as building product. You know, it's like,
At a
no,
high level, nothing changed.
know your users, know their struggles, figure out how AI could be a tool for the job, but it's not like the only tool for the job.